This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Aaron Torres is with us as well from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast and Fox Sports Radio. Aaron Torres Media. AT, are you in Funky Town too?
I'm actually in line at Starbucks to pick up a drink for my wife. She's got a big meeting at the top of the hour. But I'm also in Funky Town with Hog Nation. But if you hear a funky drink order, just know it's hers, and I'm supporting her, and I'm being a good husband. But yes, I am in a line for some funky coffee orders. But other than that, no real funk in my life to speak of. Weather's a little funky too. It's going to be like 95 degrees today.
You got to get something for yourself. Don't just be. I know that you got to be a good husband, but you got to get something for yourself. My go-to at Starbucks would be a quad grande Americano with a little bit of raw sugar in it. Do you have one?
I actually literally just said two of what she was ordering because it sounded really good. That I'll tell you, Phil, I'm not a huge fancy drink guy. I usually just drink my coffee black, but I bring it up to say that drink sounds like it'll get you through an extra innings Hogs game. I'll tell you that much, man. That sounds like there's a lot of caffeine in that bad boy.
4 shots of espresso, my friend. You got that right.
Put some hair on the chest.
Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Could also get you
I hope
through.
you're not having more than one of those like a month. You might have to consult a cardiologist. That's I know they call them the cardiac hogs on the diamond, but that's a whole other level, my friend.
Get that in a pack of Marlboro Lights, and you're killing it.
Dude, there's no jittery at all. No jitteriness at all. Body's totally used to it by now. Well, I need to have my head on a swivel, AT, because I had trouble keeping track of all the movement on the Arkansas basketball. It just keeps on coming, man. It keeps on coming. The last time we talked to you, I think it was before L. Ellis from Louisville shows up at Arkansas now. So the backcourt has been completely remade. We're waiting on Devo. And I guess that's about it as far as the guards are concerned. What'd you make of Jordan Walsh this past week? Do you see him going in the draft, or do you think he'll return to Arkansas?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's literally, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, probably one of the more interesting stay-or-go decisions in all of college basketball because, the skill is there, the upside is there, and I haven't looked at enough mock draft boards to know, is he going to get drafted? Where would he get drafted? But, you can see the NBA frame, the NBA athleticism, all of the things that he was sold as when he arrived from Fayetteville a year ago. And so I bring it up. I arrived to Fayetteville, I should say, a year ago. So I bring it back to say, you can also see the scenario where if he comes back and he really puts those tools together into something tangible, and I think he was starting to do that towards the end of the year, then all of a sudden you're talking about a guy that would get drafted this year to a guy that, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say a top 10 pick if he decides to come back. So, he's going to go through the process, and it's interesting. Everybody takes something a little bit different out of this process. Haven't really heard, what he's looking for. Is he looking for a late first-round guarantee? Is he looking for a guarantee to get drafted? Or is he just looking for feedback? But I guess what I would say is to wrap on that one is exactly what I just said, is I think he's one of the more fascinating pieces that will be in this draft process that could legitimately come back to college basketball, because if he comes back, I could see him developing into an all-SEC type player, an NBA lottery pick next year. But I could also see the scenario where an NBA team gives him some sort of promise based on the tools that are obviously there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think he should come back, and then he'd be a first round. He has a lot of upside to come back. One of your former UConn guards, Jeremy Lamb. Now, I thought that dude was going to be like a J.R. Smith or even a Delonte West. I kind of missed on him. I thought he was going to be all right. Didn't he leave early? Could you test the waters back then when Jeremy Lamb was coming out?
It's funny. Sick brag here. I actually saw Jeremy Lamb at the UConn National Championship after party at the hotel. So He's doing good. He's in the NBA, I think, still. He had fun that night, maybe even more fun than I did because I had some work to do before I got there. But he was an interesting story. So he was actually a very interesting story. I mean, I know his whole story. So he was very lightly recruited coming out of high school, was a key piece on the 2011 title team with Kemba Walker. Mm-hmm. and he was a guy that easily could have tested and been drafted, but, he was one of these guys. I can actually think of a good example. He was almost like a Daniel Gafford, where he didn't come in with any preconception of leaving for the NBA after 1 year. So then when you start hearing about the possibility of being an NBA draft guy, you don't even have time to process it. And I think his family, I remember talking to his dad at the time. This was when I was first really just getting started in the media. His dad kind of told me, we just don't think, Jeremy kind of understands it's a process, and to be a professional, he's not quite there yet. So he came back. 2012 was one of the more talented UConn teams that didn't really have much success. Andre Drummond was on that team, Shabazz Napier. But so he was a two and done. And I got to ask, Matt, where did the Jeremy Lamb talk come from? I'm very curious what piqued your interest there.
Well, Aaron, when you're the best basketball program in the last 25 years, I take notice. UConn, I love some UConn basketball. And just, it was about 6 years ago, I had a radio show or so, and I was I thought Jeremy Lamb would be more explosive I thought he was going to be a better NBA player, kind of like Jordan Walsh. I think Jordan Walsh is going to be a better NBA player, and that's good. I'm glad he's still doing good.
Yeah, I don't. Listen. If you can stick in that league for 7, 8, 9 years, you don't have to be a star. By the way, the all-time guy in that, I always say, the best NFL career that's ever existed was Dan Orlovsky. That dude was in the league for about 13 years. Probably made, $1.5, $2 million a year. Listen, we all remember the stepping out of bounds stuff, but probably made $25 million over the course of his career. Now he's kicking it on ESPN, but Jeremy Lamb is probably the same. I don't know what a NBA backup makes, but you make $6, $7, $8 million a year over an 8, 9 year NBA career. That's a nice place to live, even if you're never really a star. So, and by the way, I think that's kind of a baseline minimum for what Jordan Walsh could be. I think if he puts in the work, even if he's never a star, I think he could be in that league for a really long time.
I see Walsh as like a Jared Dudley, somebody who's running the outside, because the NBA game's a little different. You're shooting a three, you're playing defense, and you're right, he has all the skill set. He's just not an artist yet. So let him come back and mature at Arkansas and be starting. Why not get better? And that NIL money, I think it should be enough to offset it.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is that, it's been interesting as somebody who follows this stuff. There's so many guys that even literally 2-3 years ago, you just leave because you're not getting paid anything. And, the choice is come back and make no money, or it's all under the table, it's all hush-hush, or go try to make some money as a professional. But now we know how NIL works, and guys are making real money in college. And so, it does change the perspective. And I think over the course of time, it's going to make college basketball better. Duke alone has had probably 2 or 3 guys that could have conceivably been drafted, probably as second-round guys, but they all basically said, you know what, let me come back, NIL's a thing, I'm making good money, and there's other examples across college basketball. Heck, maybe Trevin Brazil's an example of, he doesn't have to risk being a second-round pick because he knows I can come back and play my way back into shape and all that stuff. So I think it's a net positive, and I think it's only going to make college basketball better over the course of the next couple years, because I think there's still a stigma about coming back to college basketball where I think give it another year or two and people are going to realize, hey, there's good money to be made. There's no stigma to being a star at Duke or Arkansas or UConn or Tennessee or wherever. I'm going to come back and make a little cash and not rush this process to the professional ranks.
Well, somebody better tell Syracuse new coach Adrian Autry about that, because the guy who transferred out to West Virginia, Jesse Edwards, the center, wow. He kind of burned the house down on his way out. Was saying something to the akin of, Syracuse doesn't. What was the exact words? They don't have their NIL ducks lined up, or they don't care about NIL very much. But that's the other aspect of this. You can have NIL and maybe pay your players a little bit to keep them in school, but Syracuse might not be doing that.
Yeah, the quote was something to the effect of, I saw it on Sunday, I don't have it in front of me, but it was something to the effect of, yeah, they don't take NIL very seriously over there. And it was like, wow, I don't know if you want your best player on the way out saying that. Now, admittedly, that one was kind of weird because, you know, he's an international student, and I don't know if Arkansas has dealt with this at all, but, you know, I know as a UConn guy, you know, Adama Sanogo is an international guy, Oscar Shibwe is an international guy, he's obviously not a UConn guy, but it's a little bit more complicated in what they can do, and so I think Syracuse was kind of being overly cautious with him, maybe to a fault, because obviously West Virginia's going to find a way to get it done. He committed there. So it's crazy, guys, and I'm sure you guys just have in the context that you have in this business, I get texts all the time of this school's falling behind, that school's falling behind, you know, and it's the new thing, right? And I think it'll all eventually get figured out, but I always say there's always money going somewhere in college sports. You know, 15, 20 years ago it was facilities, and then it was head coaches, and then it was assistant coaches, and everybody's coordinators were making $2 million a year, and now it's that NIL fund that, you know, you got to make sure your guys are taken care of. And it goes without saying, we've talked about it a lot over the last 2 years, but it's not just NIL, but it's the NIL with the transfer portal where quickly, and I know I'm going off topic here, but, you know, you see those Tyler Van Dyke rumors yesterday, and it's kind of like, that just feels like this kid's trying to use the transfer portal to leverage his school for more money. So do we like it? Do we not? You know, I think we all have our differing opinions on it, but it's the new world. And you can either get with it or you can fall behind. And I think Syracuse is a good example of a program that appears publicly to be falling behind right now.
Aaron, with the transfer portal and Hunter Dickinson, is he going to be a Kentucky Wildcat next year?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, I think I'll say this. I'll give him credit. I think he's being smart about this. I think he knows that this is, you know, this is the biggest decision of his career so far. And you know, one, financially as a player, it's probably maybe the best payday that he'll ever have. But, you know, listen, he went to Michigan. The program struggled, and I think he's really looking at this. And I think he knows, again, the leverage that he has as the most high-profile player in the portal. So, you know, there's not many guys that are just now adding visits in late April. Feels like everybody's kind of committing. But he just added 2 visits yesterday. He's going to Kentucky this weekend. He's going to Villanova, I guess. And guys, I've heard differing things about if he's going to consider an Arkansas visit or not. So the point I'm trying to make is I don't know where he's going to go. I don't think he necessarily knows where he's going to go. He went to Kansas yesterday, and I think he's being smart about it. He knows the power that he has. He knows that any team would take him at any point in this process. So he's going to kind of check all those boxes before he makes a decision.
Real quick, if he goes to Kentucky and him and Shibwe are there, are they favorites to win the national title?
Well, he said yesterday that in his conversations with Calipari, like, he basically said publicly, like, I'm not trying to get into somebody else's business, but I wouldn't be considering this if I didn't feel like Oscar was probably not going to be there.
Fair
so
enough.
I don't think you're looking at a Twin Towers type situation. I think it's kind of a one or the other with those two guys.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.